Single black dad takes his drunk boss home after the company party. When she wakes up, did you really think I wouldn't find out? Victoria Reynolds' cold voice cut through the silence office as she held her cell phone with a compromising photo on the screen. Man like you in my house taking advantage of me when I was vulnerable. 3-4-year-old. Marcus Williams remained seated calmly at the executive desk, high eyes fixed on her without showing any surprise. A single father of an 8-year-old girl, he had been working. A senior analyst at the company for 5 years. Always impeccable in his reports and respectful to everyone. He never imagined that a gesture of kindness would turn into an accusation that could destroy his life. Ms. Reynolds, you were extremely drunk last night. I just took you home safely, as any decent person would do. Victoria laughed dismissively, her blue eyes flashing with calculated calmness. Oh, how convenient. The helpful employee offers to drive his drunk boss home. And then, well, we'll know what men like you do when you think no one is watching. The insinuation was clear and poisonous. Marcus felt his blood boil, but he kept his composure. Had noticed small signs of prejudice from Victoria over the years. Subtle comments about how lucky he was to work at such a prestigious firm, condescending looks when he spoke in meetings. The way she always double-cheat his work while approving mediocre reports from white colleagues with it question. I'm sure there's a misunderstanding here, Marcus said, his voice controlled, masking the storm inside. There's no misunderstanding. Invaded my privacy, embarrassed me, and now you're going to pay for it. Victoria leaned forward. I'm considering reporting this as sexual harassment. It's your word against mine, Marcus. Who do you think they'll believe? The silence hung in the air like a tangible threat. Marcus watched the face of the woman who controlled his professional destiny, noticing how she severed every word, every moment off or over him. She had no idea that he had recorded every second of that previous night. From the moment he found her crying in the company bathroom to when he dropped her off at home, taking care to document every respectful. What if I told you I have proof that nothing inappropriate happened? Marcus asked softly. Victoria laughed. Proof? What kind of proof could a man in your position have against someone like Marcus just smiled. A smile that contained years of patience, strategy, and an intelligence that Victoria had completely underestimated. He knew this moment would eventually come. People like her always revealed their true nature when they felt in complete control. While Victoria continued to talk about consequences and resignations, Marcus thought about his daughter waiting for him. At home, fine justice she faced every day, and Theplin he had begun to form long before this conversation. If this story of Prejudice disguised as power resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what Victoria didn't know was that Marcus had spent years documenting every comment, every dismissive look, every microaggression, and now he finally had the perfecter to expose the true face of the company's most respected executive. Victoria wasted no time in spreading her version of the facts. The following Monday, Marcus arrived at the office to find strange looks, muffled whispers, and a frosty atmosphere that hadn't been there the previous Friday. She had planted poisonous seeds of mistrust with surgical precision. Marcus, we need talk, said Jennifer from Human Resources. Appearing in his cubicle he even turned on his computer. There has been a formal complaint against you. As he walked down the hallway, Marcus noticed how his colleagues averted their gaze as if he were carrying a contagious disease. Victoria had chosen her words carefully, never direct accusations that could be easily refuted, but insinuations serious enough to tarnish his reputation irrevilly. In the HR office, he found Victoria sitting like a queen on her throne, flanked by 2 company lawyers. Her smile was predatory, full of the confidence of someone who had never lost a corporate battle. Mr. Williams. Jennifer began uncomfortably. Ms. Reynolds. Alleges that you behaved inappropriately when you drove her home after the company party. She has compromising photos. What photos? Marcus interrupted calmly. Victoria slid her phone across the table, showing a picture of her lying in her own bed, slightly disheveled. You put me in this vulnerable position, Marcus. A man alone with a defenseless woman. Marcus looked at the photo with clinical interest. Interesting. And who took this picture? I did when I woke up and realized what had happened, Victoria replied quickly. Ah, Marcus said, making a mental note. First documented lie. What Victoria didn't know was that Marcus had grown up in the welfare system after his mother died when he was 12. 5 years in dysfunctional foster homes had taught him to document everything, distrust authority, and always have an escape plan. Later, serving 4 years in therapy before using his benefits to pay for college, he learned strategy, patience, and the importance of knowing his enemy thoroughly before attacking. Now, as a single father to Maya, a brilliant 8-year-old girl who was his reason for living, Marcus had perfected the art of anticipating problems and protecting himself against them. Especially in corporate environments, your black men were often the first to be sacrificed. When something went wrong, Mr. Williams, Jennifer continued, do you understand the seriousness of this situation? We're talking about a possible suspension without pay while we investigate. Sure, Marcus replied. And I suppose Miss Reynolds' word is considered more reliable than mine. Victoria leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with malice. Marcus, you're a good employee. You always have been. But men in your situation sometimes get confused about appropriate boundaries when they're around successful women. It's understandable, really. The condescension in her voice was like a slap. Marcus felt that familiar sensation, the samione he felt when social workers talked about people like him. When senior officers in the Army questioned his leadership abilities, when college professors expressed surprise at his high grade situation, Marcus repeated softly, well, you know, single father, coming from where you come from, working here at our Goodwill. Sometimes the lines get blurred when there are significant differences in status. The silence in the room was deafening. Jennifer looked uncomfortable, but the lawyers remained impassive. Victoria, however, was clearly relishing every word, every moment of humiliation she believed she was inflicting. Marcus thought of Maya, who that morning had asked why he looked worried. Daddy, are you okay? You always say good people win in the end. He had smiled and promised that he was that good people always find a way. Ms. Reynolds, Marcus said finally. May I ask a question? On the night of the party, you mentioned something about your former assistant, Sarah Chun. You said she had tried to play the race card when she was fired. Victoria stiffened slightly. That's not relevant to this discussion. Oh, but I think it is because Sarah came to me last week. She's suing the company for racial discrimination. Apparently, she has some very interesting recordings of conversations she had with you. Victoria's face lost some of its color, but she recovered quickly. Sarah is a disgruntled employee making up stories that no one will believe her. Marcus smiled again. That same smile that contained years of careful preparation. You may be right about that, Ms. Reynolds. After all, who would believe the word of an Asian woman against a respected white executive like you? The irony did not get noticed. Victoria realized too late that she had fallen into a verbal trap, using the exact same argument that was now being turned against her. What are you implying? Jennifer asked. Marcus rose calmly. I'm not implying anything. I'm just observing that it's interesting how certain people assume that their word is worth more than others based on characteristics that shouldn't matter in a professional environment. Ash left the room. Marcus heard Victoria whisper furiously with the lawyers. She had no idea that he had spent the last 12 years meticulously documenting every questionable comment, every microaggressions, Every discriminatory dation she thought was too subtle to be noticed. Every condescending word she had just spoken had been recorded by the discreet app on his phone. Every expression of superiority had been captured. Every implicit admission off bias was now digitally preserved. What Victoria also didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just any senior analyst. He had a master's degree in information systems and had built a network of contacts that included investigative Urschults, civil rights lawyers, and corporate activists who lived to expose executives like her. But above all, Victoria had made the fatal mistake of threatening not only her job, but her ability to support Maya. And when you threaten the daughter of a man who has already lost everything once and rebuilt himself from scratch, you awaken a force that cannot be contained or controlled. That afternoon, while Victoria celebrated with her lawyers what she believed to be an easy victory, Marcus was at home helping Mia with her math homework, carefully planning every move on a game she didn't even know. She had lost the moment she completely understood the intelligence and preparedness of the man she was trying to destroy. Victoria wasted no time at consolidating her victory. On Tuesday, Marcus was officially suspended without pay for inappropriate conduct under investigation. On Wednesday, she circulated a confidential memo to other executives about keeping an eye on employees who may exhibit questionable behavior. On Thursday, Marcus received a formal letter from the company requesting Faith no longer enter the building until further notice. What Victoria didn't know was that Marcus had spent the last 3 days not wallowing, but executing the first phase of a plan he had been developing for months. His first phone call wasn't to a run-of-the-mill labor lawyer, but to Amanda Rodriguez, a racial discrimination attorney who had built her career destroying executive eshwo thought they were above the law. Marcus Williams. Amanda's voice sounded interested. When he identified himself, "Sarah Chin told me about you. She said you might have valuable information about certain practices at your company." "I have more than information, Ms. Rodriguez. I have evidence." During their meeting in Amanda's office, Marcus opened his laptop and showed her meticulously organized files. Detailed spreadsheets showed how Black and Latin employees were systematically given lower performance reviews, passed over for promotions, and had their work questioned far more often than their white colleagues who performed worse. Impressive, Amanda murmured, examining the data. "How long did it take you to compile all this?" 2.5 years since I noticed the pattern. Marcus clicked on another folder. But that's not even the best part. What appeared on screen made Amanda whistle softly. They were screenshots of private WhatsApp conversations between executives, internal emails with racist comments disguised as cultural concerns, and most devastating of all, a 2-3-minute audio recording from an executive meeting where Victoria and others openly discussed how to manage diversity without compromising standards. "How did you get access to this?" Amanda asked, clearly impressed. Marcus smiled for the first time in days. "Let's just say that when you work in IT for 5 years before becoming an analyst, you learn a few useful things about corporate systems, and when you're consistently excluded from important meetings, you find other ways to stay informed." Meanwhile, Victoria was in her office celebrating with phone calls to other female executives, bragging about how she handled with a problem employee before he became a bigger liability for the company. She had no idea that every word was being documented by the monitoring system Marcus had discreetly installed months earlier. "The problem with people like him," Victoria said on the phone to Margaret Thompson, director of Anna Thurbranch, "is that they don't understand appropriate boundaries. They grow up thinking they deserve the same treatment as people who have actually built something in life." On the other end offline, Margaret laughed. "At least Yao took care of it before he tried to play the race card. Those cases can drag on for years. Exactly. That's why I acted fast. A single black man against a respected white woman. The courts may be more sensitive these days, but the reality is that credibility still matters. Marcus listened to every word through the system he had set up. Each commentet automatically transcribed and marked with a date and time. Victoria was digging her own grave and didn't even realize it. That afternoon, Amanda called with news. Marcus, I've got something interesting. The Justice Department is investigating discriminatory practices at large corporations. Your company is on the list of companies under preliminary scrutiny. That means your evidence won't just help in a labor lawsuit. It could be the missing piece in a much larger federal investigation. As he talked to Amanda, Marcus glanced out the window of his living room where Maya was doing her homework at the kitchen table. She had asked why Daddy was home during the week, and he had explained that he was working out some problems at work. Will everything be okay, Daddy? She had asked with fat frightening insight children sometime shave. Yes, it will. Sweetheart. Sometimes people think they can be mean to other people without consequences, but the truth always comes out in the end. Maya had smiled and returned to her math problems, confident in her father's premise. That confidence was what fueled Marcus' fierce determination. It wasn't just about him. It was about creating a world where his daughter would never have to accept being treated as a second-class citizen. Amanda, Marcus said, returning to his phone. There's some more thing I need to show you. What? The recording of my conversation with Victoria yesterday. Her whole performance about men like me and status differences. It's all documented, including the part where she admits she planned this situation from the beginning. Amanda was silent for a moment. Marcus, do you understand what this means? It means she's not just committing discrimination. She's orchestrating a conspiracy to harm an employee based on racial prejudice, and she was stupid enough to admit it on tape. Exactly. And that turns a routine employment case into a federal criminal charge. That night, while Marcus was helping Maya with her history homework and civil rights, she asked a question that made him stop breathing for a moment. Dad, why do some people think they're better than others just because of the color of their skin? Marcus chose his words carefully. Sometimes, Maya, people who have never had to fight for anything think that their easy life means they're special. They forget that we're all equal. And what do we do when we people like that? Marcus smiled, thinking of Victoria celebrating a victory that would soon turn into her total ruin. We show them they're wrong with intelligence, with evidence, and always by doing the right thing. What Victoria also didn't know was that Marcus had spent years building a network of contacts that include investigative journalists, civil rights activists, and even other employees of similar companies who had experienced discrimination. His suspension had freed up time to activate this network in a way he could never have done while working full-time. On Friday, while Victoria was having lunch at the most expensive restaurant in town, celebrating with Margaret Thompson, her efficient management of problematic human resources, Marcus was in a video conference with representatives from the Department of Justice, presenting events that would turn Victoria's life into a legal nightmare from which she will never wake up. For a moment, when Marcus turned off his computer after the meeting, he allowed himself a smile of satisfaction. It wasn't a smile of revenge. It was the smile of a man who had finally found the perfect moment to let justice prevail. A man who had learned that patience and preparation were worth more than 1,000 angry words, and that sometimes the best response to injustice is to give the unjust enough rope to hang themselves. Monday began normally for Victoria. Premium Coffee executive meeting. At 9 o'clock, lunch with investors at noon. She was reviewing presentations when Jennifer from HR appeared at her door with an expression Victoria had never seen before. A mixture of panic and disbelief. Victoria, we have a problem. A very serious problem. What now? Did Marcus hire some cheap lawyer trying to stir up trouble? Jennifer closed the door and approached the desk. The FBI is in the building. They want to talk to you about systematic discriminatory epictic. Victoria's blood ran cold. What are you talking about? There's a federal investigation underway. Apparently, someone has provided extensive evidence of racial discrimination at the company. Recorded conversations, internal emails, manipulated HR data. Jennifer paused, watching the color drain from Victoria's face. His name is at the center of it all. At that moment, the door opened and 12 federal agents entered, followed by the company's CEO, Mr. Davidson, who looked like he had aged 10 years since the previous morning. Ms. Reynolds, said the lead agent, showing her his badge. I'm Special Agent Carter from the Department of Justice. We'd like to ask you some questions about your management practice. Victoria tried to maintain her composure, but her hands were shaking slightly. Of course, but I don't understand why that would be necessary. Starting with this conversation, Fejan played an audio recording on his tablet. Victoria's voice echoed clearly throughout the room. The problem with people like him is that they don't understand appropriate boundaries. They grow up thinking they deserve the same treatment as people who have actually built something in life. Victoria's face drained of color. That was taken out of context I was talking about. And this one, another audio clip began to play. A single black man against a respected white woman. The courts may be more sensitive these days, but the reality is that credibility still matters. Mr. Davidson stood up abruptly. Victoria, for God's sake. Tell me you didn't say that, but the worst was yet to come. The agent slid a stack of documents across the table. These are retranscripts of your phone conversations from the last 6 months, all legally obtained through a court order based on a detailed complaint of systematic discrimination. Victoria leafed through the papers with growing horror. Every racist comment, every discriminatory decision, every conversation where she revealed her true prejudices was there, documented with date, time, and context. Who provided this? Mr. Marcus Williams, along with evidence that you orchestrated a false accusation against him based solely on racial prejudice. The agent showed her more documents, including security system records showing that you yourself took that compromising photo at your home 3 hours after Marcus left Yusufly. The revelation hit Victoria like a bolt of lightning. Marcus had documented everything, every move, every conversation, every moment of the previous night. The security cameras in her own building clearly showed the stamp of the photo she had used as evidence. In addition, the agent continued, we have records that you willingly accessed the HR system to alter the performance reviews.